Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. This issue's been characterised as a debate between freedom of speech on the one hand and the heavy hand of regulation and government censorship on the other hand. And we hear a lot about freedom in this place. We hear constant references to the nanny state. We hear about the curtailment of individual liberties and freedoms. But it's become increasingly clear to me over time that the debate we have about freedom is often couched in very narrow terms, and in fact what we've just heard from the Coalition is a very narrow interpretation of freedom, and indeed one that's not shared by the Australian community. You see, this isn't just about freedom of speech, it's about the freedom of a young Muslim family to be able to travel on a train without being racially vilified. It's about the freedom of an Aboriginal boy to be able to play football without being insulted on the grounds of race. Freedom is much, much broader than simply the freedom to be able to express your opinion regardless of the circumstances. It's about freedom to flourish, to grow. The government doesn't seem to be concerned about the freedom of individuals who don't want to have the communication they have with their friends and family, businesses and so on, to be surveilled by the government. Freedom for two people of the same sex to be able to have their love recognised through marriage is an important freedom, but one that's ignored. Indeed, what about the freedom of a person in tremendous suffering who wants to be able to choose the way in which they end their life? That's a freedom that doesn't seem to be important to this government. It appears that freedom's only important when it serves a political agenda. If you've made a promise to your mates at News Corp that you're going to try and kill Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, then freedom's paramount. Well, the good news here is that the Australian community have made their views very, very clear. In some sense, I welcome the debate that we've had. We've seen a response where people have marched, we've seen town hall meetings, we've seen councils right across the country express their view on these changes and how they see the freedoms for people that need to be protected. What it's really done for me is it's consolidated the view that Australians have a sophisticated view of what freedom is, and that sometimes, in order to be able to protect freedom, we need to take collective action, that governments need to pass laws because we recognise that through that collective action we enable individuals to flourish and to grow. And that's freedom. That's what freedom is. The message to the government here is very loud. It's come through very clearly. You've got to get out of the echo chamber that you're currently in. It's convenient for you at the moment to be in an environment where you're listening to your mates at News Corp, where you're listening to the big end of town, where you're getting a very narrow interpretation of what the Australian community believe and want. And it's why you're in the trouble you're in with your budget at the moment. You've got to get out into the community, you've got to connect with people, and you've got to understand that freedom is a much broader, much more generous concept, and one that the Australian community have expressed a view very clearly on. They don't want to be in an environment where their kids are going to be subject to racist taunts, to be vilified on the grounds of the countries of their origin, because they know that is a great threat to their kids' freedom to grow, to flourish, to develop. And that's what this debate has done, is it has consolidated that view, that very clear view, that government action collectively, when there is a consensus, as there is around Section 18C of the Racial Vilification Act, is the best protection against intrusions on freedom.